Hey bitches! Oh my god, how are you guys? Wow, it's great. My hair is always a goddamn mess, but it's quite representative of my life, I must say. Everybody, hope y'all are doing well. Today we are going to be doing the mid-year freakout book tag or the mid-year book freakout tag. I can never remember which one the fuck it is. Y'all already know what this tag is. We're just gonna be reflecting on the books that I read in the first half of 2018. So far for the year, I read a grand total of, drumroll please, 12 books. Y'all so jealous of me, oh my god, look at me, I'm a reading queen. But I have some things to say about some of these books, so we'll be doing this tag. I was going to wait a little bit longer till I read a couple more books because the actual midpoint of the year I think is like the first or the second, but everybody's doing the tag now and I just kind of want to do what everybody's doing because I'm unoriginal. The best book that I read so far for the year of 2018 was You Bring the Distant Near by Mitali Perkins, which is a young adult novel about a Bengali family that follows 5 women in this Bengali family across 3 generations as they immigrate across the world, and we are exploring their relationship with their identity, with their nationality, with each other, and it's a wonderful, wonderful family saga condensed into a beautifully written YA novel. This book is such a necessary addition to the YA genre because there's no other book like this. It is just an absolutely beautiful book, both inside and out, and I think that everybody needs to do themselves the favor of reading it. I haven't read any sequels in 2018 thus far because I don't really read series, so I haven't really read much sequels. I did read the first in the Miss Marvel comic book series, but I didn't continue on. So if I did, I would have probably had an answer for this question, but I don't. But because I kind of wanted to fill in the gap and not leave this question hanging, I did read a book that is sort of like a spin-off of a show that I used to watch, and it was a Hannah Montana novelization, and let me tell you, this was a mess. It was corny, just like the show, but I loved it nonetheless, just like the show. Question number 3 is new releases that you haven't read yet but want to. So there are 3 on my mind. I did mention a couple of these in my last video where I talked about the top 10 books that I would like to read this summer, but there were 3 other books that did come out in the first half of the year that I didn't get around to that I would love to as soon as possible. So the first is American Panda by Gloria Chow. We have Down on the Cross by Arvin Ahmadi, and Let's Talk About Love by Claire Khan. I don't know too much about each of these books, which is why I didn't really bother to buy them because I didn't look into them too much, but I've heard nothing but positive things about all of them, so I definitely am looking forward to getting around to these, if not anytime soon, hopefully by next year or so. Number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, so naturally I don't have one answer for this question, I have 2 actually. First is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee, which is the second novel or the follow-up to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which was one of my favorite books of last year. I love that book so much, and I know I'm not going to love this one as much because it's not following the same character, and what I want to see out of like a continuation of this series has to come from the perspective of either that character or his love interest. But this book is told from the perspective of his sister, who I didn't really care much for in the first novel, but I'm still nonetheless very interested to see how her story pans out as she embarks on a new career as an illegal pirate ship doctor. It sounds awesome. It's set in the 1700s and it's amazing. Can't wait to read it. Then Tehera Mafi is coming out with a new book called A Very Large Expanse of Sea, and I honestly haven't read anything by this author, but this is her first like legit contemporary novel, and it's about an Iranian American girl after the, I was gonna say World War II. It's about an Iranian American girl after 9/11 and the experiences that she has. I think this is going to be game changing too because it's addressing a very, very touchy issue, which is 9/11. So I'm looking forward to this book. I'm looking forward to see how the main character's story pans out, and hopefully I really like it, and if I do, I might just give some of Tehera Mafi's other books a chance. My biggest disappointment for the year, unfortunately, would have to go to If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Rousseau. This is a book that I wanted a lot out of and I didn't really get anything much. I love the representation in here. I think the authentic own voices portrayal of this main character's experiences as a young trans girl was excellent. I tabbed up parts of it that I liked, so there was certain things about this book that really stood out to me. Unfortunately though, other than the representation, I found this book to be really bland. I was very unengaged. I didn't care for the writing. I found the characters to be very and extremely one-dimensional. I gave it a solid 3 stars because again I enjoyed the representation, but really it's more like a 2.5 star read. So this was a disappointment. I really wanted to love it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it in the way that I expected to. Number 6 is Your Biggest Surprise, and honestly I have to say I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erika L. Sanchez fits the bill for that one. I did not expect to love this book. I had the opposite experience of If I Was Your Girl with this book. I was thinking that I was going to give this a 3 stars, and even when I started it, I was like, this is going to be somewhere between a 3 and a 4, and by the time I finished it, it ended up being a 5-star book. I loved it. I love this book so much. It does have its problems. It's not a perfect book by any means necessary, and it's not for everybody. People are going to read this, and they'll either find it boring, they'll hate the main character. There are certain things about this book that are problematic as well, but at the end of the day, it stood out to me, and it did all of the things that I needed it to do for me. In a nutshell, it's about a girl called Julia whose older sister Olga passed away, and she kind of is discovering things about her sister that she didn't know in her death, and it's about how she's coping with her family and the grief and finding out these mysterious things about her sister. Yeah, it's just a wonderful book. I talked about this more in my January wrap-up, so please watch that if you're interested, but I loved it and I definitely highly recommend it. Number 7 is favorite new author, new or debut to you. My favorite new author, debut and new to me, is Tanaz Bathina. She wrote A Girl Like That, which I loved. I gave this 5 stars initially, but I brought it down to 4 stars because there was some questions about the representation in this book, even though it is own voices. But it's a wonderful story about an Indian girl in Saudi Arabia and the kind of experiences that she has. We know from the get-go that she dies in a car accident, and the story is basically like following the events that led up to that incident, and it's wonderful. I loved this book. It's not an easy book to read. It's quite frustrating. The main character is frustrating. There's a lot of girl-on-girl hate that I don't know whether it was challenged or not, so some people might go into this book and end up hating it. And obviously there's the whole thing with the questionable representation of Saudi Arabian society, because the author herself was an Indian immigrant, just like the main character, growing up in Saudi Arabia, and she was kind of like an ethnic and religious minority, so she writes about Saudi Arabia and portrays it in a negative light, or at least kind of like portrays negative aspects of the country. So it's been brought into question for that reason. But I think in terms of storytelling, in terms of characters, I fell into this novel. I had an experience that I had with no other book for the year. I was sucked into this and engaged with this in a way that I wasn't engaged with any other book, as I said. And that could be because I did buddy read it with my friend April from Aprilius Maximus, and she tends to read faster than me, so I had to kind of up my pace to keep up with that buddy read. But still, I think I would not have been able to keep up with that buddy read if this book wasn't as engaging as it was. And Tanaz Bathina is actually coming out with a new book this year. I'm completely blanking on the name of it, but it has a really cute cover as well. It's this girl in like a skirt or something like that, so I'm looking forward to that one. But I really love this book, and this is actually not the book. I lent it out to my cousin. I just put the jacket over Mockingjay. I'm combining newest fictional crush and newest favorite character to talk about one of the best new characters that I've read for the year, and I kind of mentioned this already, but I read the first volume in Miss Marvel, and I absolutely love Kamala Khan. I see so much of myself in her, not just because she's Muslim and has like South Asian heritage or whatever, but because something about her personality I just relate to. She's very sheltered, she's very into herself. Something about that I just really love, and I can't wait to move on with this series and experience more fun times with this character. And I especially cannot wait because I don't really care about Marvel or DC. I only really like the movies, especially the Marvel movies, and I just cannot wait for this character to be introduced to the MCU. And I heard that she is going to be introduced like around next year when the Captain Marvel movie comes out or something. I'm hoping like she's like, what's it called, the epilogue at the end of the movie where after you wait for the credits. Like, I'm hoping that it's like the first, the scene where she was walking and then had the fog. Like, I'm hoping it's that. It's boiling down to I just want to see this bitch in a movie. Like, I like comics and whatever, but I'm not like crazy for graphic novels or comics. I love movies. I love the Marvel movies, so I just want to see her in a movie, and I cannot wait until she makes her debut there. But for now, I will settle for the comic series because it is quite a lot of fun as well. A book that made me cry, surprisingly, was actually Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I did not expect to go into this novel crying or coming out of it feeling any type of emotion. I knew I was going to like it, but I didn't know I was going to have such an emotional connection with it. This is about 3 siblings who are all given up for adoption, and they are reuniting in their late teens, and it's exploring not only their relationship with each other, but their lives and their life context and how that influences their relationship with each other, and it's brilliant. Oh my god, this book is absolutely brilliant. And the ending of it was so bittersweet. Like, it was more sweet than bitter, but like, if you know how this book ends, I'll just say the pictures, that's what killed me. That's what got to me. I started to cry. I could not stop myself, and I don't cry very often when it comes to books. I think the last book I cried reading was this one, In the Country We Love, which I talk about all the time. But I had such an emotional experience with this book and these characters. It wasn't the best thing ever. I gave it like 4.5 stars, but I still really loved it, and it made me feel things that no other book made me felt for the years yet. So definitely give this one a go if you haven't already. And I think I'll put this one towards number 11 as well, which is a book that made you happy, because this book, as I said, it was a bittersweet end, and it made me very happy at the end to see how things turned out for the characters. But there was just that one thing that I just couldn't help but just cry over. So this was a book that made me feel those two things, and I loved it. It was amazing. My favorite book to film adaptation that I saw for the year is the only book to film adaptation that I saw for the year, and that is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, which was adapted into Love, Simon, as most of us know by now. I adored this novel, and I love the movie. I actually, unpopular opinion, I enjoyed the movie a bit more than I did the book. It could be because I never really cared to read the book before, and then when the movie was coming out, I kind of got excited for the movie, but I didn't want to watch the movie without reading the book, so I read the book just so I could watch the movie, but I kind of speed read it, so just like I didn't skim it, like I read it properly, but I think I just kind of read it so that I could know what happens before I watch the movie. But either way, I loved both of them. This was an excellent book. I gave it 4 stars, and it was a story that I really needed in my life, and it was a story that I really needed to experience visually as well, so I think that's why I ultimately did enjoy the movie a lot more. It was very idealistic and unrealistic. Simon, I wouldn't say he had it easy, but he did have it easier than other people would have if they were in the same situation. Especially if that was happening in my country. Oh, girl, sorry, that wouldn't have been a very happy movie, I can tell you that. So I only did one review for the year, and even though it was the only review that I did for the year, it was still a review that I'm very proud of, so I'm not just picking this because it's the only review or the only answer that I have for this question, but I genuinely do think that I did a good job with this review, and that was for Love, Hate and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed. Now this came out in January, and I did my review for it in January, but I did read an arc of it in December, so I read this book last year technically, but I did post the review in January, a week before the book came out, so I did post the review this year. I loved it. It was such a phenomenal story about a young Indian American Muslim girl experiencing Islamophobia after a terrorist attack happens in the States. But as I was saying, my review for this I was very happy with, because I think, I don't know, I just listed out the pros and the cons of this book. It was a 4-star read. I didn't love it holistically. There were things that I thought could have been improved, but ultimately I did enjoy my review for this book, and I did enjoy filming it. I enjoyed conceptualizing it, and I enjoyed posting it and seeing everybody's feedback and stuff on it, and I also got feedback from the author, so that was really cool as well. So I'm very proud of that review, so go check it out if you're interested in knowing more of my thoughts on this book. Number 14 is the most beautiful book that you've bought for the year so far, and I was going to go with A Girl Like That for this one, but because I actually lent out that book and the hardcover underneath it is another book, I decided to go with another book that I got this year that I think is just absolutely gorgeous, and that is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X. R. Pan. I think this book is so beautiful and so pretty. I love the colors. I love how it fades from red to this kind of purple color. I love the illustration of the bird and how the bird is kind of like leaking. I love the font. Like everything about this book is just so gorgeous, and even the naked hardcover is just, it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I have a couple that I would like to get to. Again, you could go check out my video where I talked about the top 10 books that I like to read this summer, because some of those books would be in that video. But if there's some other books that I could add to that, I would say that I really want to read When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McClemmer. I'd also love to get around to All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brendan Keeley. This one I got at the bookstore yesterday. I'm very excited for this one as well. There's another book that I was really interested in. It's not coming out until 2019. I don't know what it's about. I can't remember the name. I just looked at the cover and I heard the premise and I was sold. I'm going to look up the name of the book now. As I said, it's coming out in 2019, but I'm hoping that I could get my hands on an arc of it. I'm just trying to look it up so I could find the name of the damn thing. You would think that I would have prepared for this video and looked up the book before the video, but no, I'm just a disorganized hoe. Right, so it's called The Love and Lies of Roxana Ali, and it is a book about a Muslim teen, Indian American Muslim teen, I think, and I love the cover. I love the illustration of the girl on the cover. Also, The Puppy War by R.F. Kuang. This one has been making its rounds, and I'm also quite interested in reading A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. So those are just a couple books that I would like to get to before the year ends. I don't know if I will get to all of these, especially the one that's not coming out before the year ends, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's that's it for this video. That last question was very disorganized, but I just didn't really feel like planning or scripting. Y'all know I'm going through a lazy phase right now. Anyways, if you've read any of these books and have any thoughts on them, I'd love to know in the comments down below. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.